Premanande. Shri Krishna Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Shri Siddharji Gopal ki jai. Shri Gauri Vaishnav Guru Parampara ki jai. Gaur Bhaktabinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajinulambita Bhujo Kanagabhadato Sankirtanayaka Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godarai Pushpavanto Chitro Sandottamano Vandeham Sri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanda Radhakanda Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwamanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pranamami Hari Priye Shri Vrindavaneshwari Radhe ki Jai Bauji Gopal ki Jai Ho Nityananda ki Jai Ho Premanande Grantara Srimad Bhagavat ki Jai. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So good morning. Nice to be with you again. A little cloudy this morning, huh? A smart fellow there. So we were we're discussing from the Bhagavatam's 12th chapter, 10th canto. And this is the first chapter of 3 that constitute the Brahma Vimohan Lila. And yesterday we heard really about the first section of this chapter, which is what it's really all about. An introduction to, or an extension from the previous chapter, further glorification of the early Sakyaras Leelas of Krishna and Balaram with their friends, that, as we heard, and we concluded with this, Sukadev was just astounded to think about the ramifications of this, the implications of this, how they were interacting with he who, properly understood, is approached by the Gyanis in the form of his Nirvishesh Brahman, his aura, with great austerities, painfully, who is glorified in terms of the majesty of Narayan, which is an aspect of himself, by devotees in Vaidhi Bhakti seeking the mukti and the prema of Vaikuntha, who is misunderstood and thought to be an ordinary person by ordinary people. Avajanati Mamudha Manusumtani Mashrita. Something like that. Foolish people. Yogamaya. Bewildered by my Maya. That here how they got there was how he concluded. And it's such a beautiful thing, he's saying, as he's described, it must be a beautiful way to get there. Sanatana Goswami in his commentary cites Amar Ghosh, which is like a famous book of Sanskrit, like a thesaurus, really. So, so many synonyms. And he draws from there. That's the synonym of punya, which is invoked. Krita punya punja, krita punya punja. What measure of pious would be the ordinary translation, pious punya activities that they perform to have attained this position? Well, obviously, we can see from just from the verse itself that can't be speaking about punya karma, because you can't get punya karma to enter into Brahman and enter into Vaikuntha. It must be something else. So he's drawn from Amarkosha, and he says that we find that punya means also beautiful. So he's saying he's saying how beautiful must be the path. It corresponds with this such a beautiful end. What a beautiful sadhana it must be to achieve such a beautiful sadhya. So as we practice, so we will attain. Think about that. And that's where we concluded. Now he extends this a little bit, because in the verse, well, the Gyanis have been described, their goal, the Vaidhi Bhaktas, their goal. Someone might say, what about the yogis? That's a beautiful path. Well, not in the estimation of Sukadev, who includes them in the next verse, just extending the point, and says what they try to achieve, just to get a glimpse of a particle of dust from his feet for a moment. These boys are, without any effort, it seems, in front of them at all times, moving with them and so forth. But the yogi tries to fix in his mind for a moment. Very difficult. They seem to be doing without any effort whatsoever. He is in their midst and in front of them and so forth. So again, he further marvels, and in a way, he makes a comparison, and this is the way the Gita works, and the Bhagavatam works this way as well, with regard to Abhideya Tattva, the path, the way, the means. What I mean by that is it works such that overtly and directly the path of Ananya Bhakti, Ahoituki Bhakti, Prem Bhakti, different names for the same thing, Uttam Bhakti. This path is directly glorified in the texts, like the Gita, repeatedly. Here we find it, here we find it, here. A few places. It's consistent throughout. And throughout, other paths are mentioned in relation to that. So it's directly glorifying the path. The Bhagavatam does the same thing, directly glorifying the path of Uttam Bhakti, and indirectly glorifying the path of Uttam Bhakti by comparing it to other paths and that which is attained by them. This is something that is important for sadhana, because we should feel that our path is the best. We should also feel that other paths are best for those who feel that their path is the best. So we don't want to necessarily impose upon them, but to help us, to fix us with reason. It may be somewhat of a subjective reasoning, as objective as it sounds to us, and we can make a case for that. But in another sense, perhaps, at least with paths that actually lead to transcendence, it's somewhat subjective, because the experience in transcendence of everyone is, it's perfect, whatever it is, whatever they've attained. So here, glorification of the path and the sadhana and the sadhya. We conclude with that. And then now the chapter takes a turn to the second part or section of the chapter, of which there are three. Second part is, well, what? Atagaha namabhyapatan mahasuras. And then you see the contrast here from the Krita Punya Punja, the beautiful path of Uttam Bhakti in the form of Sadhana Bhakti, which turns into Bhava Bhakti and then to Prem Bhakti. This path, beautiful path, is being contrasted with Athaga, Namabhyapatan Mahasuras. Enter into the picture the Maha Asura himself, Agha, whose very name, Agha, means sin, which is the antithesis of Punya. So within karma, you have Punya and Pap, right? Piety and impiety. He represents impiety. But here the contrast is even greater, because impiety might be referred to as a sin of the flesh. However, here we find the impious Agha is entering in the picture the Maha Asura with a view to serve as opposition to, even to do away with this beautiful form of bhakti in the form of Krishna's friends and himself. So what do we call this? Now we're going outside of the realm of karma, it's pap and it's punya, and sins of the flesh to sins of the soul, aparad. So now he's already a sinful fellow. Now he's going to become an aparadi. In other words, he's also coming out of the realm of pap and punya, but not in the way that you want to come out of it. He's coming out of it to offend bhakti. So bhakti being nirguna in nature means it's not a product of the gunas. Karma marg is governed by rajas. Sattva, Gyan marg is governed by sattva. Sattva means from sattva we get knowledge. From rajas we get material improvement and so forth. So these two paths, karma and gyan, they don't unto themselves have transcendental efficacy. They cannot unto themselves afford us penetration into transcendence itself, liberation, mukti. For that, we need something from that side. Even if you come so far as to attain jivan mukti, like sometimes it can be done in the Gyan Marg, where you've got Atmanand, like Sukadeva was a jivan mukta. He had realized the Atma, but to realize the Atma and to realize Brahman, there's another step. So that's the penultimate step, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, entering into Brahman, is the final liberation. For that, you need some bhakti, You might, Sanatana Goswami agrees, for a moment in the beautiful argument showcased in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where the Gyan Shastras are arguing with the Bhakti Shastras, because this is an ongoing debate: Gyan or Bhakti, knowledge or devotion. You go to the Advaitin side of the argument, and Gyan is everything, and Bhakti is if you have to do it, you can. And if it helps you to get Gyan, okay. But it's something to be retired. Well, this is not very pleasing to the ears of the Bhaktas, who obviously have the opposite perspective. In a phrase, I guess you could say, but that by bhakti, even Shankar admits, you can get mukti by coming to Gyan. But nowhere is it said that by Gyan can you get bhakti. Of course, he doesn't posit bhakti to be a goal of Gyan, but at any rate, this is the teaching from our side, right? We see Sukadeva from his Gyan, from being a Jivan Mukta, he got bhakti. But sometimes, as even Mukta Bhagavatam teaches, Ruyakachjena Paramapadam Tata Patanti Adho Nadvishmadangaya. Abhishuddha Buddhaya. Vimukta Manina. He thinks he's liberated the Jivan Mukta. But because she deprecates bhakti, dismisses bhakti, then has to fall down again. Happens. There are examples like Surabhi Muni in the Jamuna, who was meditating underwater and he offended Garuda. He was driven, I guess you could say, by sattvic parabdha karma to be compassionate to the fish that Garuda was eating. So he cursed Garuda, but the result was he committed Vaishnava aparad, and all the fish died. Right? Because Kaliya thought now it's safe to go there, because Garuda can't go there, which wasn't true, but Garuda just said, for heck with you, I'll leave, and I'll leave some nectar here too, on this Kadamba tree, because Krishna will be coming. Anyway, that's a whole other Lila, we don't want to go there. It's a long one, important one, also part of this Sakya center of the Bhagavatam. But so the efficacy of bhakti is nirguna. So from you might, Sanatana makes the argument, okay, the Gyanis and the Bhaktas are arguing back and forth, and finally the Gyanis say, without bhakti, you can get self-realization. And he said, okay, all right, I give in, I admit. You can get self-realization, Atmananda, like Socrates, without bhakti. And then the Gyanis, how, here and now we're victorious. Then he says, but, who cares for that? It's like in American football, if you come to the 1 yard line, but you don't get the touchdown, it doesn't matter. So what if you get self-realization if you can't get Brahman realization? You're still in the material world. And from there, what will happen if you offend bhakti? So it's just, we think it is a small thing in comparison, right? Self-realization. So we need, if self-realization is a passport, we still need a visa to enter into that realm. So here we find the Aghasura. He was very easily motivated by Kamsa's appeal to him that you go and destroy this Krishna. If you look at the different demons, usually you can find a gradation of ways in which they came up with to deal with the situation, the previous way not having worked. So like Bakasura tried to eat him, pinch him, chew on him, and swallow him. So Aghasura had to come up with something else. But it was easy for Kamsa to motivate him because after all, Putana and Bakasura were sister and brother, respectively, of Aghasura. So he had some investment in that, some bias in the first place. Aside from the fact that he was doing the bidding of Kamsa, he had family relations that were also an extra added motive for him. But the point is that he came there, and upon arriving there, he transformed himself into a boa. You can see them here sometimes. But this was a big boa, like 8 miles long. Now that, we'll get into that, but so he transformed himself. So it's a little fantastic, but there are said to be magical powers that the tantrics can exhibit and often deceive people by such into thinking that they're actually spiritual. And Krishna, of course, is the Yogeshwar of all the power. And we'll see how he dealt with the magical powers of Aghasura. But it's very timely here at the same time that Aghasura is appearing. And what I mentioned here in terms of the reason for his appearance, motivated by Krishna's deeds previously in slaying or liberating, really. I don't know why he was offended. He liberated Putana. He liberated Bakasura. What more could you want? But he wasn't that smart. Not very intelligent at all. So he came, this is the background by Kamsa's, doing Kamsa's bidding. But above and beyond that, the reason for his appearance is relative to the extent, the measure, the extent to which these boys were absorbed in the bliss of the play of Sakyarasa that is central to these chapters. Even the cow herding, as I said, is facilitating that. That's what is being showcased first and foremost. And point is, they were so absorbed in their play, some of which has been described, about which Sukadeva is marveling, that the very reason for their joy to be out there, unchaperoned and so forth, without the previous time limitations they had experienced, not being able to go too far into the forest and having to come back early and so forth, because they were having a picnic lunch, right? It came in Krishna's mind. They were taking their meal out there with them. Point is, they were so absorbed in their fun that they had forgotten their lunches that they had hung on the trees. And Leela Shakti needed to push the Leela forward. So she allowed this Aghasura to come into the scene to bring them out of their play. Had to be something very, very powerful. The point is, that's how absorbed they were. They were so lost in it. And that's what Sukadeva is marveling at. You needed an 8-mile-long, mystic yogi turning into a serpent to come on the path, appear, and so comes Aghasura. This is the primary reason, right? And we'll see as we go forward too. With the liberation of Aghasura, his body became a further facility for the playing of the boys for years to come. So here it's mentioned that he comes on the scene, right? Give me a couple of reasons for that, a secondary and a primary reasons. And it said, Tesham Sukha Kridana Vikshakshana Samaha Nityam Yaranta Nijad Jivite Subhi Pitam Rite Api Amarai Purikshite. So, meanwhile, while the boys frolicking and playing along the path suddenly see this gaping mouth of a boa or what, they're not sure what it is. He is facing east. And the sun is coming up on that side. It's not quite midday yet. And they are facing west, so the sun is to their back. So the sun is shining and reflecting off of this Aghasura, and it's kind of hard to make out exactly what he is. Looks like a big cave in the forest. That sounds like fun. And wow, it's deep. And so, but maybe it's a snake. So they have to go through that. That will come. But here, the point I'm making, the text is making, as they see Aghasura, so do the devas who are observing from above, right? They're amazed also by the play of Krishna. They don't understand it to the same extent as Sukadeva, and in their midst also, the devas, that is, they don't understand it to the extent that Brahma does, not having received the kind of samskars, bhakti samskars that Brahma did. So that we have to discuss going forward. We've mentioned it previously, but to examine it further. But still, they're very pleased by these activities. They're very pleasing. They're very beautiful. They're watching them. And here comes this ugly aga with an ugly intention, and it strikes fear in their hearts, even though they have drunk the elixir of immortality. This is the point being made here. In other words, the Deva's life is so long that you need a supercomputer to calculate it. And still you wouldn't reach the end, but it reaches an end. Brahma Vimohan Lila. What's the difference? All the realms in this world, even up to Brahmalok, Krishna says in Gita, one has to die and take birth again. But my realm, by contrast, punar janma na. Punar again, janman? Na, not birth again. That's one of its characteristics. Not tadbhashayate suryana shasham konapabhaka. Yadgatvanani vartante tadama paramamama. You should be sure that the goal that you want to achieve that has a corresponding realm, that goal should be eternal and corresponding. That realm should be eternal. Otherwise, it's not worth pursuing. If you could go there and come back, there must be something wrong with it then. So Krishna says twice in the Gita, no, punar janmana, 3 times, 3, 4, maybe 3 times. Punar janmana vidite. Natad bhashayate suryana shasham konapabhaka. He said, there's no need for sun, moon, fire, electricity there. It means it's illuminous. Luminosity is a light is a symbolically a way of speaking about knowing, right? The light bulb goes off in your head, right? So it's a place in which there's no unknowing. There's comprehensive knowing. Sometimes some devotees misread the verse and they say, oh, it means if you go there, having been here, you never come back. But if you haven't come here yet, you might come back from there. But this is a misunderstanding what the verse is saying. The reason that you don't come back is the reason no one could leave there, even if they never came here first, because it is self-luminous. So the comparison here now, what the text is doing is starting to make a comparison between the Gopas and their attainment and the way they react to Aghasura and the Devas who are in their position by Punya Karma. They've attained Devalok, the celestial realm, by their good karma. They live a long, long time there. And still, they know that they're within striking distance of the serpent of Agha. They can die. They have some fear. The appearance of Aghasura here in this section of the Bhagavatam is very timely, because this section of the Bhagavatam, as I said, is showcasing this fraternal love of God. The principal characteristic of which is what? Vishrambha, Pradhan, the Pradhan. The central characteristic of this type of love is a kind of confidence. The confidence is in prem, the confidence that Krishna loves me and I love him. It's said that every cowherd boy thinks that Krishna loves me the most, and every one of them is right. They have this kind of confidence. So from confidence, they have no fear to interact with him in any way. Sometimes, again, they serve him, sometimes he serves them. They have pranay. That means they have no hesitation to kick him in fighting if the occasion should arise, and it will cause their victory over him in a mock battle. I mean, to touch someone with your foot is thought to be inappropriate, right? Because they don't see any difference between their bodies and his. Pranay is like this. If you walk down the street and somebody touches you, you kind of go, oh, excuse me, or you touch them. But if you're with someone you love, you rub up against one another. It doesn't, you know, it's your body and their body. You extended your sense of self into their body. This is the intimacy of pranay. This is very, very central to Sakya-rasa. It also shows in Madhurya Rasa, and even in what was the term? In Sambhog, in Kantabhav, there's pranay. Two kinds of pranay. We won't go into that, but it's an example of how Sakya-rasa also plays a role in the Madhurya Rasa indirectly of Braj. And for those who have the Tadbhav, a different type of Madhurya Rasa, the one recommended in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, then we also find influence of Sakya-rasa there. Jiva Goswami has made the statement, and if we look carefully, we think he's explained it as well. I won't go into it in detail here, but the point is that this is central to Sakya-rasa. It's pranay is not there in Dasya-rasa. You won't find it in Vatsalya-rasa. It's central to Sakya-rasa, and you can find it in Madhurya Rasa also, to some extent. So if we think of Vishramba and pranay as a kind of love without any hesitation, it's a fearlessness. And here the devas, by contrast, are fearful. They have no fear. They have no fear on two accounts. They are Sharanagatas and they're Premikas. They have no fear because of their prem. And the measure of their prem is extreme. So Arjuna has Sakya-rasa also, but there's a different type of Sakya-rasa. Therefore, when Krishna shows himself to be the universe, he gets a little fearful of Krishna and has to step back. If Krishna would show that to the coward boys, they would not step back for a moment. Such is the measure of their prem. So from the prem point of view, they are fearless. From the point of view of Sharanagati also. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a nice song, Atma Samarpan. Yeah. So he speaks about this anga, this limb of Sharanagati, which there are 6. This one is Gopritve Varanam Tata, that Krishna is my protector. And in this song, he sings about this aspect or this limb of Sharanagati, which, along with Gopritve Varanam Tata,
you say Gopritve as protector is Rakshikshati Vishvasva.
Rakshikshati Vishvasva, excuse me, yes. Rakshikshati Vishvasva means Vishvas, Vishramba, Vishvas, firm faith, confidence. It means confidence. It's not pride, it's confidence. There's a difference. I'm confident. I'm proud to. Try not to be. But the confident Krishna will protect me. And then that Krishna will maintain me. Krishna is my maintainer. These two, sometimes another, are thought to be the Swarup Lakshan of Sharanagati, the primary characteristic around which the other angas of Sharanagati move and assist as Tatastha Lakshan, marginal characteristics of what it means to be a Sharanagata. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? Be a Sharanagata. And how does he contrast it? How does he say it the opposite way? He says, Sarvadharman Purityacha Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. So be a Sharanagata. Now he wants to say it the opposite way. Sarvadharman Purityacha Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. Ham Tvam Sarva Papibhyo Moksha Yashami Masucha. Don't fear, he says. Don't fear that there will be negative implications from this. Be a Sharanagata, don't fear. Means you'll be fearless at the feet of Krishna. Abhay Charananda. Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. He was very much of this nature in his sadhaka daya and in his internal life as well. Right? So in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song about this anga, Rakshik Shatri Vishvashvo, with Krishna is confident, Vishvas, that Krishna is my protector. He sings about all these leelas, Agasur and Bakasur, and let me go in the forest and I will see the Bakasur and Krishna will protect me. And let me remember the cowherd boys in this way. And so it's a nice song. We find some places in which Bhakti Vinod, in his writing, in his theological writing, in his lyrical expressions, in his confessional texts like Bhavataranga also, we find instances in which, in my estimation, he is paying some regard to the lineage in which he comes, as it was originated in Nitai Chand. This is the beginning of our sampradaya. Nitai Chand, bringing attention to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the eyes of everyone. In the context of doing that, people become attracted to him and they imbibe his own internal sentiment of Sakyarasa. So there's so many Sakyarasa bhaktas coming out of Nityananda Prabhu's campaign. After all, some of his principal associates came with him to this world. Datta Thakur, one of them, whose day of appearance we're celebrating tomorrow. So, what was the point? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, after the passing of Nityananda Prabhu and most of the Dwadas Gopals, a few of them remained a little longer, but at that time, Janava became prominent, one of the consorts of Nityananda Prabhu. And the way in which she became prominent was by connecting with the Goswami's books, by making pilgrimage to Vrindavan and learning their insights. This is, at least externally, we look at it like this, wherein they are, if you read it carefully, emphasizing this Unata Ujjvala, a special type of Ujjvala Rasa, sometimes later in the Sampradaya referred to as Manjari Bhav, to become the handmaiden of Radha, right? So she's then carrying this in a line of Nityananda Prabhu, and there are different reasons why it became more prominent. Good reasons and bad reasons. Bad reasons, for example, with the diminishing of spiritual power over time, which sometimes happens in a lineage. Suddenly, because more supporters were going to the Madhurya Ras section, suddenly the Sakya Ras section turned into a Madhurya Ras section suddenly and said, oh, our founder, Udaran Datta, he's a Dwadasa Gopal, but he's also a Manjari. Must be. We also have Manjari Bhav. Please come. And only few rupees. So this is a condition, of course, that Bhaktivinoda also found to be unfortunately prominent to some extent. I'm speaking about it a little crudely, but this is the idea. So for bad reasons, it got pushed to the background. And you could say for some good reasons, it took a backward position because it is in a supporting role. It should be in a supporting role of this ideal. And of course, as the Sampradaya goes forward, sometimes we find, as we did in the form of my Guru Maharaj, a huge wave of this, again, resurfaces. Nityananda Besh, what would you expect? If his campaign externally was as extraordinary as it was, then we can reason theologically, as Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj did, he must have been empowered by Nityananda Prabhu. He negotiated with Krishna. Oh, Krishna, I think it will be good for you. You'll get pious credits if you do the bidding of Radharani. This Krishna said, what? You know that? What do you want from me? Give me the power to do the work of my Guru Maharaj, who's the representative of Radharani. He said, well, take the power. I put Balaram inside of you. I put Nityananda inside of you. Even outside of our sampradaya, during the time of Prabhupada's campaign, some sadhus in Braj, they would say, Nityananda has come and empower this Bhaktivedanta Swami. There's a special thing going on right now. Large campaign, Nityananda Prabhu. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in some places, my point is, we can reason he is himself in Madhurya Rasa. He makes it very clear, but in different genres of the text that he wrote, we find he speaks in such a way as to show some appreciation, some deference to this ideal, and facilitate, therefore, those in the sampradaya who may be of this this type of ruchi. We can gain some prayers from him. We find this also to an extent in Jiva Goswami. Amongst the 6 Goswamis, in all their writing, none of them will show here and there as much appreciation for Sakya-rasa as Jiva Goswami, although he's a Manjari. But in his childhood, he worshipped Krishna and Balaram in his home. So anyway, we already know it's a beautiful thing. We got Sukadev's statement on that. And the Devas are marveling at it. They don't understand the implications of it to the same extent as Sukadev. And when Aghasura comes into the scene, they're going to see really that it's quite, their position is quite different from theirs. They have fear. These boys have no fear. They see this Aghasura and they're not sure what he is. So a number of verses, won't go through them all, but quite a number of verses, they're discussing amongst one another different opinions. At first, some of them thought, wait, what's that? Initial response, Sanchari Bhav. And others think, it looks like a cave, we should explore it. Someone else says, it looked like a snake. And someone else says, well, you're crazy? An 8-mile long snake? These things don't exist. So back and forth, they have discussion. And I guess, again, the sun is just glistening off of his upper lip. And it's hard to tell exactly what he is. And this goes on for quite a while here. They're discussing. What is this? What's come before them? And they eventually come to a conclusion on their own that well, they don't come to a conclusion. They whatever is the conclusion. Maybe it's a cave. Maybe it's a snake. Maybe it's a cave, but let's pretend it's a snake. That'd be more fun. They think like that. And so they enter. And Krishna is at a little bit of a distance, and he's watching this, of course. Now, Lila Shakti's arranged this for the reasons that I mentioned, but his omniscience is coming a little bit to the surface, so he knows it's a snake, and he also knows it's a yogi, it's a tantric, it's one of Kamsa's people, and so what will we do in this situation? And the boys are looking at Krishna and looking in the cave, and of course they enter into the mouth of Aghasura. But Krishna's thinking, I don't want them to enter there. That'll be a problem. This is his will. So now the question will come, but they went anyway. How can Krishna's will not come true? He is Satya Sankalpa. He didn't want them to enter. Krishna, his Sakya Bhav was now influenced by Karuna Rasa. Karuna Rasa means the compassionate rasa, compassion for his devotees. He felt, these are my friends, they're my life. I can't let them enter in here. This is Aghasura. He's a demon. He has a nefarious motive in mind here. And then he's overwhelmed by adbhuta, astonishment, and kind of suspended, which and which time they actually start to enter. Then the compassion again comes, and his will is that they don't enter. Their will is to enter. So how can their will override his will? It's a theological problem, right? And of course, the answer is there. They're also Satya Sankalpa. That's a quality of a mukta. So there are two different opinions, two different wills between Krishna's intimate associates and himself. Who will win? Well, the devotee will win. Because that will is not really contrary to Krishna's will. It's pleasing to Krishna. Whatever they do is pleasing. So the devotees will overrode the will of Krishna. And of course, Krishna's wonderful Lila, Krishna marveled. He understood at a certain point, my Lila Shakti has arranged this. He's following her lead, right? And entering in, of course. So Agasur closes his mouth. As I said, Bakasur tried to bite him with his beak. So Agasur thought, I'll swallow it. Because he'll come in, I will not clamp down on him, give him a chance to respond. I'll just swallow him with all the boys. Pythons, they got a big capacity to swallow. And this way, he thought, I'll slay Krishna. I'll slay Krishna's friends. And I'll kill thereby, for all intents and purposes, everyone in Braj. That's how much I will respond for this joy of Braj, of a boy who killed my sister and my brother. And of course, I'll satisfy my king. So this is big aparad, huge. And it's intentional. It's planned out. It's one thing if it's incidental. You shouldn't get neurotic about that. Oh, I offended Maharaj. And he's going, what are you talking about? You might offend me more by telling me that. They can calm down. For the most part, aparad has to have some intention connected with it. Of course, the more the intention, the more there may be consequence, right? This is how the realm of bhakti works. If you have their heart in the right place, you really can't do anything wrong. As I said the other day in Karma Marg, you have to do everything technically right. If you pour the wrong thing in the fire at the wrong time, you're not going to get the result. In bhakti, even if you make a mistake technically, but your heart's in the right place, you'll get the right result. Pujapad Sridhar said, sometimes you hear our pronunciations. What are they saying? Oh. And he said, yeah. And he said, Krishna will appear that he will say, I think you meant this, right? That's what you wanted to say. That's what I felt. After all, what is the language of Golok? Some people think they will learn Sanskrit. Then they will know the language of Golok. It's not a bad thing to do, or Bengali, or Brajbas. But I see sometimes they get deluded by their knowledge of the language. There, the language is love, where you don't have to say anything. There's a song. What was that? I want to say I love you, but the words got in the way. The words got in the way. Beyond words, beyond thought, and there's movement at the same time, and there's communication. Right? So what must be the talking there? What must be the dance, the walking there? It must be singing. Must be dancing. What must be the singing? What must be the dancing? So what can we say about the place, right? So Aga's intentionally going against these dear, the very life of Krishna. Krishna's thinking, if they're devout, what will my life be? Also. And Krishna, and he has intention to kill, for all intents and purposes, take the life out of everyone in Braj. So it's huge offense. So by this huge offense, intentional offense, we can really come to appreciate why we want to serve Krishna? Because what happened? The devas are hope you can kill him. But Krishna's thinking, I'll liberate him. We might say the Vishnu in him killed him, but Krishna's going to liberate him. He enters his mouth and helps him exit out of the Brahmarandram, the crown and his chakra and his head. Then he comes out of the mouth with all the boys. The devas are watching this, and he enters into the form of Krishna. This is the beginning now, the lesson of tattva, one of the important lessons of the Brahma Vimohan Lila. He entered into Krishna. He entered into Krishna, and he got. There are different opinions, but there's evidence from the text from which some have drawn, commentators, the conclusion that he attained Sarupya Mukti. And this idea that he attained Sarupya Mukti means to have a form like Narayan, like God. If he entered into Krishna and got Sarupya Mukti, thus went to Vaikuntha with a form like God, then what does it mean? What are the implications? That is an aspect that can be attained through Krishna. As I said before, the Aishvarya is an aspect of his Madhurya. This is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, right? Krishna, the source of Narayan. He can send you to Vaikuntha and give you a form like Narayan. And the gods see this. How could they see it? This is the point. This is support of the point that he got Sarupya Mukti. Some will say Sayuja Mukti. But how could they see him? Because you cannot see the Atma. But if he had a Sarupya, then you could see that. Effulgent, just a flash of the effulgence of his Siddhadeha, Sarupya. Four-armed like Narayan. They got a glimpse, and he entered into Krishna. It means Narayan is inside of Krishna. That's an aspect of himself. Right? And the devas are seeing this. And you can imagine what kind of a commotion that created amongst them. Because how rare is it to attain mukti of any kind? Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid dhyatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschid mam veti tatpata. Very, very rare. 1 in 1,000 will be interested. Amongst the 1,000 of them, one will be whatever, successful. So he goes on and on. And you should know this. This is how you should think. I came to this for that. Of course, it's praying, but you're learning that as you go forward. And mukti is inside of praying. You didn't come here for a religion. Don't come here for a religion. Come here to leave the world, where religion is the better part of it, but still within it. To leave the karma mark. Religion is within the karma mark. It's dharma, karma, kama, artha, and as I like to say, moksha. These three are prominent, and they all know the Hindus. Yeah, moksha's there, but not for you, son. You should marry, have son. Give us grandchildren. We worked hard to send you to college. No, you should marry. Yeah, moksha's there, but that is for some people. In many lives, not this life. Understandable. What does the Gita say? Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistrigunya Babarjuna. And Nirvanavan is Sattvastola Yoga Chain Ananyas Chintayantumam Yejana Prayapasate. Tesham Nityabhuktanam Yoga Chemam Bhami Ham. He reiterates this later, in the middle of it, in the theological section of the text, having mentioned it in the beginning, in the second chapter. The Vedas are mostly dealing with Dharma, Artha, Kama, all under the modes of nature. But he says, you should go beyond that. You should look deeper. If you look deeper beyond Dharma Jignasu, you come to Brahma Jignasu. And if you look deeper, you come to Rasa Jignasu. Nigama Kovatoroga Palam Sugamukadamrata Drabasam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Malayam Hudahu Rasika Bhuvi Bhavaka and Dharma Projita Kaitabo Traparamo Nirmat Saranam Satam Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Saholito Gododai Pushpabonto Chitro Samdo Tamo Nudo. Tamo Nudo, and Tamo means a desire for Dharma, Artha, Kama. Gornitai are getting dismissing that. And Samdo, they're giving Prem. Prem. The Bhagavatam is, Gita says, what at its conclusion? Give up Gyan, give up karma. And the Bhagavatam, its theological sequel, begins Dharma Projita Kaitabutra. Give up these pursuit of these ideals. That's a cheating. You cheat yourself by that. This book, it says, it has another ideal for swan-like people. And in comes Brahma on his swan. Why is he riding a swan? Amongst all the devas, they're shocked at what's going on here. Someone has been liberated. And how they got liberated? Just by his touch. Just by his will. Such a difficult thing to achieve, just by his will. And he got Sarupya Mukti. I mean, the devas know this. They're preoccupied with the happiness of that place, so that it's an impediment to, and a long life impediment to having the wherewithal to bear down and do the sadhana to achieve that which you came here for. Again, not to just be a religious person in the world, not just to have some head full of knowledge that you've memorized and regurgitate, know what to say and how to say it without knowing what to do, without doing it. Don't be like that. Come here to stay here, so to speak. Right? So the devas, they're all shocked that this is happening, and the leader amongst them, Brahma, as we talked about, intelligence, presiding deity of Vigyan Shakti, he comes in on his swan. Why is he riding a swan? Because swan is said to be that creature amongst the less complex forms of life that has an extraordinary power of discrimination. It can discriminate between water and milk if you put the two together in a glass. Drink the milk and leave the water. Fine discrimination. A suitable vehicle for Brahma. So all this commotion amongst the devas, and so what's going on earth, he has to come in and see and weigh in what's happening. And of course, then we come in what he sees. And now another current we see is what's behind all of this. It's happening for different reasons. So Krishna is arranging all of this. Remember, he's Mugdha. But remember, he's Sarvagya. What does Mugdha mean? Mugdha mean? It means he's like unknowing. By the force of the love of his devotees, his all-knowing recedes to the background. But it's not gone. It's there, his omniscience. And what is the value of that for us? He can hear our prayers. So Brahma is praying. I got these mantras this mantra from you. from Krishna, dawn of creation. Krishna came wearing a Gopa vesh. He held a Gyan Mudra. He gave me the mantra. It's mentioned in Brahma Samhita, mentioned in Gopal Tapani, it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. You may read Srimad Bhagavatam and say, well, it doesn't say in here he had a Gopa vesh. Sounds like it's Narayan that he got the darshana. It's clear in Brahma Samhita. It's clear in Gopal Tapani, but Brahma Samhita, where did that come from? Someone will say, from another sampradaya. You say, oh, yeah, it came from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't accept that. Gopal Tapani, Madhva doesn't accept it because some say it didn't exist at the time of Madhva. 13th century versus 14th century. Oh. Bhagavatam, yes, but he's not describing as wearing Gopa vesh there, as in the dress of a Gopa. That's fine. What did he say? What did he say in 4 verses? There you find Ragmarg, Rasyam, he's describing, a secret kind of love. Narayan's not going to talk about that. So, and Narayan's inside of Krishna, still Krishna showed himself to Brahma, spoke the 4 verses, gave him diksha, and Brahma's off trying to figure out what that's all about, going about his sadhana, worshiping God in Brahma Loka, who's not Gopavesh Krishna. He's thinking Krishna's an avatar of Narayan. But his mantra is telling him something else. So amongst all these devas, he has some unknown kind of heart for what's really happening there that the other devas don't have. He has bhakti samskars of the Sakyaras nature. Evat Sakya, Sakyuriva. Krishna touched his hand, right? Came and clasped his hands. His 2 hands, grabbing the hand of Brahma. Brahma, I'm very pleased to meet you. Let me share this with you. And Brahma replies, you have approached me like a friend to a friend. Prabhupada says, like equals. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, and Brahma had a desire to develop love for him in friendship. Later in Bhagavatam, what is that, 84th chapter, Shrutadev and Bahulasva, the king, Bahulasva, and Shrutadev, the Brahmin, they meet Krishna, and he agrees to come to visit them, their homes, and treats them equally. Anyway, whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. When he comes to Shrutadev's home, he meets Shrutadev, he praises him, and Shrutadev clasps him by the hand. Krishna clasps him by the hand and speaks to him. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, clasping him by the hand means he showered him with Sakyarasa. So Prabhupada brings up, because Krishna touched his hand, that means he's definitely in Sakyarasa. Brahma has definitely now affinity for Sakyarasa. So he has these impressions. We may meet a sadhu, we may even take diksha, we may not know exactly what it's all about. There's learning curve, and sometime we start to realize this is what's happened to me, this is what the current I've come in touch with, and so forth. So Krishna is omniscient. In the midst of his mugdha, he can feel the prayers of Brahma. He knows it's time to acquaint this guy a little bit more with what this ideal that I've initiated him into is all about. He wants it, but he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't know what the Vishaya Lambana, the object of love of Sakyarasa, looks like. He saw me in Gopavesh, but I was not in full form there with my friends. He doesn't know the object of love. He has no experience of the shelters of that love, those who have that love, the Udipanas and so forth. All this is in play here in Braj. So he's coming in on his swan, and he'll get off of his swan also. That's the head. He'll get off his swan and leave his intelligence behind and enter into the domain of Gyan Sunya Bhakti. And his bhakti will turn from a Vaidhi orientation to the Rag Marg orientation, that was the seeds for which he received. So that's coming ahead. But for today, at least, this is what's happened so far. Brahmaji ki jai. Gopal Krishna ki jai. How'd you go, Paul? Any question? Yes. Yes.
So you're saying a lot of Krishna. How does Krishna have so much of this power and known? How does that all this power also with the Devas, like how does he have all this?
Well, what you're asking is how does God have a lot of power? It doesn't make a lot of sense when you think of it like that. But let me give you a way to appreciate this. In order to play, you have to have some power. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you want to take a vacation and play. Well, you have to have some power with the company that you work for to get a vacation time, right? You have to have some power in the form of money in the bank, right? So to play, those who play must have some power. They're not working to maintain themselves at that time, at least. So there's some power that they have accrued, which affords them the ability to play. So to play, you have to have power. Now, if you look at the Hindu pantheon, there are all these gods and goddesses. They've all got different carriers and different weapons, and they wear different things. It all means different things, right? But all of them, none of them are playing all the time. Brahma's not playing. He's busy as an engineer, architect of the universe, managing things. Shiva's busy meditating. Indra's busy with his celestial exploits and so forth. This one, that one. All of them have something to do. So they don't have the power just to play only. Now, Krishna in Vrindavan, who we're talking about, what does he do there? He only plays. He doesn't do anything else. He's the son of the cowherd king. In that sense, cowherd boys in particular don't have to play, but he doesn't have to play on top of that because he's the son of the king even.
Doesn't have to work.
Pardon me?
Doesn't have to work.
Yeah, excuse me. Doesn't have to work. Doesn't have to work. Only has to play. He only has to play. He plays the flute, but that's just play. It's all he's doing all the time. Even as I said, herding cows, well, that could be some work, but the cows make it play for him. They cooperate. They want to facilitate his play. Therefore, they make the ground into dust and soft for his lotus feet to walk on. So the point is, he who is only playing must be all powerful. So the very play of Krishna, that he's doing Lila, effortlessly Lila, the implication of that, if we study it, is he must be all powerful. You follow? Good question. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Anything online? All right. Let's stop there. Shishidaju Gopal ki jai, Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanand.
Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai.